Hi there besties, or if you're new here, my name's Kia and I love reading, and today I'm going to be reading some one-star reviews of my favorite books. One thing you need to know about me is that I am a very dramatic human being. I have very strong opinions about pretty much everything that I do, read, watch, so I'm a little nervous to read these one-star reviews. I also want to say I rate books based on how much I enjoyed them and how they made me feel. So I'm not the type of person who is trying to write a 5-star review about the writing style or anything like that. I definitely notice writing when it's bad enough to distract from what it's saying or something doesn't make sense, and I'm very sensitive to typos. But other than that, if it's just a little silly, goofy, not realistic, if I still enjoyed myself, it's still going to be rated highly by me. I am a little bit nervous because I know that some people are going to be very brutal about things that just don't really bother me, I guess, if that makes sense. I also am terrified that they're going to make me hate the books that I love. So let's just see what they have to say. The first book that we're going to be reading 1-star reviews for is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I definitely relate to this book as someone who deals with mental illness and a lot of social anxiety, especially in high school. Rocky's review says, 5 pages into the book and I was angry at myself for having picked it up. That's sad. I can't tell if this book is a DNF for this person, but sometimes I feel like you gotta give it more than 5 minutes. That's just my opinion. There have been books where I started and it wasn't my favorite and I didn't think I was gonna like it, and then I ended up loving it, but all respect here, it's fine. Oh no! Okay, Jude said this had nothing to offer. I can see that if you aren't someone who has dealt with some of the issues that Charlie has dealt with. But for me, it felt really reassuring to feel like I wasn't the only one who felt crazy. I also love this story because there's kind of a found family element to it, and I feel like it really portrays what it's like to go from feeling isolated to having that found family, but then also having the issue of not wanting to be too codependent on the people that you develop a relationship with, because you know, that can be troublesome. Is that a word? Troublesome? That can be troublesome in itself. So, another book that I shamelessly love is ACOTAR, or A Court of Thorns and Roses. I do feel like the series takes some getting used to, and I can see definitely why people would not rate the first one very highly. But for me, I kind of retroactively rated it 5 stars because even though it wasn't necessarily a 5-star book on its own, it brought me the rest of the series, and for that, I am grateful. Let's see. This review is very long. Baba Yaga reads. Her review says, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ACOTAR drinking game. What you need: a copy of ACOTAR, an alcoholic beverage of your choice, 1 or more friends to play with. Seriously, don't do this alone. How it works." Drink every time you read the words, "A shiver went down my spine, my knees buckled, in a heartbeat or a heartbeat later, I would never be able to paint it, male/female, smirk, snarl, prowl, or purr, take a shot every time Tamlin," oh no, I'm gonna have to, oh gosh. Okay, I apologize to the ACOTAR fandom. I know everyone says Rhysand, but I read it as Rhysand and I can't get it out of my head that way. So I don't know. I also just don't like the nickname Rhys because it just makes me think of like a surfer boy. All love to surfer boys, but that's just not really what I picture when I picture, you know, this dark fae lord, you know? So I'm so sorry, but you're gonna have to deal with me saying Rhysand, and just forgive me, I guess. I don't know. Take a shot every time Tamlin or Rhysand's overwhelming sexiness is mentioned. The word claim is used in connection to sex. Feyre uses ableist slurs or blames her dad for being disabled. Bonus, finish your drink when Feyre is harassed by Tamlin or Rhysand, but in a sexy way, so it's okay. Feyre complains about how difficult that ridiculous riddle is. Feel free to add new rules as you go. Enjoy the game and drink responsibly. Honestly, this sounds like a great time. I don't know if you would make it through the book without, you know, having alcohol poisoning. The words like purr and snarl and prowl and smirk doesn't really bother me, but the other words, like, yeah, that would be embarrassing in like a regular romance, but like this is fantasy, you know what I mean? Like, we're not talking about fully human beings at this point, so I don't know, it just doesn't bother me in that way. Okay, Aileen says, I'm a second away from dousing myself in gasoline and lighting myself on fire just so I never have to look at this book again. I don't know if I've ever felt that way about a book, but I mean, she spoke her truth and we can't be mad at her for it, right? Okay, Holly's review. This is it. This is the stupidest book I've ever read. Another thing for me is that books are a way to kind of like escape reality for me, and maybe that's not a good way of coping with things. This review honestly has me trying to think of the stupidest book I've ever read. What makes a book stupid? Is it like being unrealistic? Because if so, I feel like a lot of fantasies are going to be out of the running for you if you think that unrealistic is what makes a book stupid. Is it the writing style? I don't know. I would love to know. Project Hail Mary was my favorite book that I read in 2022. And yeah, I put it at number 1. I absolutely love this book, especially because I was not expecting to care so much about the book or where it was going. And I just love Andy Weir's writing because there's a lot of humor into it. And Project Hail Mary is probably the book that made me laugh out loud the most. And I don't know if that's the case for everyone. I don't know if it's necessarily laugh out loud humor for most people, but for me it was. I just can't picture people hating it, although I will say I can understand people not liking the ending because it is very far-fetched, but I need to understand how people hate this book because I could never. Okay, Kendra says, in the editor's note at the beginning of this book, the editor notes that they love this newest novel by Weir because it pushes the science. It also pushes all credibility and sense. I have a very strong-willed suspension of disbelief, but this went too far, making it much more of a fantasy of about a 5-year-old than anything else. What? If you enjoyed this technical... I can't read. If you enjoyed the technical creativity of The Martian, you'll want to give this one a pass. Okay, so this review is saying that the storyline is basically the fantasy of a 5-year-old. I don't know if I can necessarily agree with that. Maybe the overall premise kind of falls in the realm of, you know, being a little bit of a juvenile, like, fantasy, but it's not written that way, in my opinion. The fun thing is I am creative in different ways, but thinking about fantasy things like this and coming up with like different worlds that don't exist, that's not really in my repertoire. And so you would think that I wouldn't really like stories like that because I stick to kind of like the reality of things. But for me, I feel like that's what I love about this book, is that it makes me think of a different world that I would not think possible. And to me, it just didn't feel cringy, honestly. Like, I just fell in love with the characters. It's definitely less science-based than The Martian, which I love The Martian too. So I think there's a place for people to love both of them. But yeah, it's definitely not all like science related, and it's not super based in reality or like, oh, this could happen. Honestly though, it's interesting. I feel like more people are open to the idea that space is so big that there could be so much out there that we don't know about. And that kind of made me feel like, no, maybe this isn't realistic to happen, but it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility for me because of just how like massive the universe is. MCo's review says, every so often I am lucky enough to come across something that reminds me of how beautiful the diversity of the human experience is. For example, some people love this book. That is honestly so funny because, yeah, me and this person are probably very different people, and that does make the human diversity a cool thing. Okay, it is very clear that Emily Henry is my favorite romance author, and I think I need to reread them, I'm not gonna lie, but I feel like Beach Read still stands as one of my favorites of hers. So let's see what people have to say about Beach Read. I'm scared. Kay says, if I have to read another Crooked Smile again, I'm going to die. Oh my gosh. I honestly understand this review. When authors repeat the same thing over and over in a book, it does usually drive me crazy. Personally, I don't really remember that happening. Actually, kind of remember her describing Gus that way and it being a little bit repetitive. But hey, if he's got a crooked smile, he's got a crooked smile, okay? May's review says, if this book was a spice, it'd be flour. Damn, okay. Honestly, it kind of freaks me out a little bit because Beach Read was one of the first romances that I read when I was getting back into reading. And so now I'm like, dude, I just have like a crazy perception of what a good romance is. And I just wasn't used to them, and it actually wasn't that good. And I've just loved it forever for no reason. This really makes me want to reread Beach Read because I want to know. It's been many years and now I'm like, but I remember it being fun, and I remember the spice scenes, and it's been years later, so I'm not saying they're the best things ever, but flour? Another book that I really loved is Remarkably Bright Creatures, and Charles says, Jesus fucking Christ. That is his 1-star review, Jesus fucking Christ. Well, if you're not someone who likes magical realism, you're not gonna like this book. It's not realistic, and if you like realism, this ain't for you. So maybe that's why Charles hates it. Kate says, I ordered this book because it was advertised for fans of A Man Called Ove, but I have to insist that isn't accurate. The plot was a cute idea in theory, but it missed the mark for me, and I found it very predictable and boring. The characters were uninteresting. I'm actually offended that this was compared to Fredrik Backman, which is honestly kind of interesting because I feel the complete opposite, because I absolutely love A Man Called Ove, and going into this with that comparison, I felt like it was decently accurate. I don't think they're like super similar books or anything of the sort, but I do feel like people who like A Man Called Ove and people who will like this book, there is a big crossover, in my opinion. However, that doesn't mean there's necessarily the most similar books, unless you're talking about, you know, like an elderly main character, one who is dealing with kind of some emotional trauma. Maybe those are where the similarities disappear, but I personally really loved it, both of them, and I'm sad that she couldn't really see the connection between the two, or at least that she didn't get to enjoy both. I can't speak. Okay, Corey's review says, expected a lot more octopus. And honestly, that's kind of fair, because the octopus, his name is Marcellus, and he is definitely my favorite character. I can't lie and say the book wouldn't be better with a little bit more of him in it, but yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We talked about A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman, and let's see some 1-star reviews of that, because that is also one of my favorite books. Wow, Tony has a lot to say. In the spirit of full disclosure, I have only read the opening pages of this book. Actually, only page 1. That said, let me explain why I only gave it a 1 star and quit reading. Ove, we are told on page 1, is a grumpy old man of 59 years old. He's curmudgeonly and inactive. He's sour. He knows nothing about technology and doesn't want to learn. Ove could be Ebenezer Scrooge. Life is a humbug. Here's the problem. I'm 59 and don't know anyone my age like that. I'm told there are such people like that, but they're 79, not 59. Backman is only 35 and Swedish. Maybe 59-year-old Swedes are like Ove, but none of my pals are. I'll use me as an example. I'm a Marine Corps vet. I'm writing this on a MacBook Pro. I own every tech platform out there: Kindle, iPad, iPhone, and Apple Watch. I run a fitness program and do intense exercise 8 to 10 times a week. I've run 18 full marathons, 14 half marathons, 124 triathlons. My last full marathon was last year when I was at the ancient age of 58. Next year, I'll run 2 more half marathons. This year, I started working on my PhD. I don't think I'm exactly typical, but I don't think Uva is even close to being representative of my age. None of my buddies from high school are Uva. Based on the comments I've read, most find this book to be an exceptional read and that Mr. Buckman is an accomplished novelist. And that may be true, but for me, the main character is much too young to be believable. And quite frankly, it's a bit insulting to describe a 59-year-old man in such terms. My 45-year-old girlfriend agrees. Damn, Tony. This review has me so confused because this is why I don't think people should rate books that they didn't read, because you're basing it off of like such a tiny percentage of the book. And yeah, those are some of the personality traits of Uva, but have you heard of character development? Because that's what's happening here in this book. There is a lot of character development. This honestly is kind of a character-driven story. So I just wish that Tony gave this book a chance to see the changes in Uva and kind of see what he went through. And I totally respect that people in their late 50s can be, super into technology, can be super active, but it's kind of crazy to me that someone can say, oh, this character in this book isn't anything like someone who's the same age, so they're completely wrong. I thought the point of reading was that we could find different points of views and meet, quote unquote, meet people that are different from us. There are plenty of times where I have read a 27-year-old in a book. I'm 27, by the way. And are their lives anything like mine? Absolutely not. But do I immediately think, oh, that's not realistic? No, because everyone's lives are so different and we're all such different people at different ages, especially depending on what we go through in life. So I'm a little bit sad that Tony couldn't read this book and kind of see what happens with Uva and just kind of, get more information. But to each their own. I do think it's hilarious that he only read 1 page though. That is a quick DNF. Holy moly. I don't think I've ever DNF'd a book that quickly. Okay, I spoke in my last video of how much I'm obsessed with Reckless from the Chestnut Springs series, and I can see why people would hate this book. I'm not gonna lie. Doesn't mean that I am embarrassed to rate it a 5-star, but yes. I don't know if I'm gonna get her name right. Niharika Reads? This book/series has officially broken my brain. I'm DNFing this, and I never DNF. The writing is so cringy, I can't take it anymore. At this point, I want to physically hurt this book, but I'll settle for throwing them away. Truly, anyone can write and throw it into the world, and I think that's kind of beautiful. Not. My God, what a hot mess. This one makes me so sad. I love this book so much. Shelby said, "The good, I freaking love and adore Theo." Same. He's such a great male lead. I love the found family and friend group of these books. There is a trope in here I usually hate, but it worked in this book and was written well. The bad. I hated Winter in the previous books. She gives Nesta vibes. Absolutely. In this book, I hated her inner dialogue. I was constantly irritated and annoyed with her, which made it hard to read. Overall, it's a good book, and it would be closer to a 3 or 4-star read if Winter wasn't so awful. I feel like I kind of agree with her in the sense of the good and the bad. However, I personally, there are insufferable characters to me, and that can make a book hard. For me, Winter was not one of those, mainly because I feel like I kind of understood some of her, issues that she's dealing with. This is another thing where I think I just really genuinely adore character development in stories. So if a character is kind of annoying or they're not my cup of tea or they're just not my favorite kind of personality, I try not to stress about it because I have a feeling they're written that way to change and grow. Now, if all the characters were lovable immediately, would I even enjoy it? I mean, I probably would, but I think some people just really cannot stand when a book has a character that they don't agree with, and they don't even give them a chance to see if they grow or change as they get older or as the books go on. Okay, Heartstopper. Esther's review says, please do not come after me with your pitchforks. And I understand that because people are diehard for Heartstopper. I personally just really enjoy it. I think it's lighthearted and cute and fun. I understand being afraid of a fandom, I'm not gonna lie. Samuel's review says, damn, this was bad, sorry. It's more cringy than cute and it really has no story, and the only thing they're doing is kissing each other? Not for me. I think to some degree, the point of Heartstopper is to be that cute little story, and since it is such like early high school age, I mean, I know they're in the UK and it's not called high school there, but since they're at that young teenager age, of course it's going to be a little bit cringy, like in the dialogue and stuff, because that's the age of the characters. So I totally understand this story not being for everyone, but I love it. Okay, next is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Charlie says, from the moment she said holy pepperoni, I realized I was too old to be reading this book. And honestly, I don't blame her, because YA is honestly very hard for me to read. I cannot read a lot of them. In fact, I try to only read maybe like 1 or 2 per year. And sometimes it's written in a way where, yeah, there are some things in there that are kind of embarrassing or like cringy, but it's okay for me. I can get past it. But yeah, I understand. When characters are written really young and you're older, it can be kind of annoying to read. But I love this book. It's still written in a way that's like super entertaining in the sense that you want to see what happens. And Pip is by no means a perfect character in terms of her morals and things like that, but it's really interesting to see a character like that. Here I go on about character. I think that's like my favorite thing about stories. Maggie said, I made a Goodreads account just so I could give this book a 1 star. That is dedication. I'm curious if Maggie has rated any other books since then. Like, how are you liking the platform, girly? Are you like enjoying rating books? Are you gonna give a bunch of books 1 stars now, or where are we at? Where are we at in your Goodreads journey? Okay, The 7-Year Slip. Naimal says, so stupid. It's so highly rated that I'm wondering whether I read the same book as everyone else. I kind of have felt this way in the past. It's really weird to be like, what are you guys reading? Personally, I love this book so much because I just feel like it was a unique storyline, and the way that everything comes together is just enjoyable for me to read. I really like the banter between the characters. Do I think this book could have had a little bit more to it, more substance? Yes, it could have like added a little bit more meat to it, but I don't think it's stupid. I think it's cute. Mia's review says, girl was in love triangle with the same man and it was boring as all hell. I love the idea of it being a love triangle because of the different timelines. I don't see how it can be described as a love triangle, but fair enough. Last one, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is my favorite Abby Jimenez book, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And even then, it's not perfect. So I completely understand people having criticism, but let's see what they have to say. H. Lace says, everybody needed therapy. And honestly, that's true, but think about the world for a second. I want you to think about real people for a moment. I think everyone needs therapy, right? Can we all agree on that? At least most of us do. And I feel like Abby wrote this in a really great way of showing, yes, we all have faults. We all have things we have to deal with. We all have trauma we have to work on. At least most of us. I really like the way that she wrote it in this story and the way that the characters handled it. Becca says, female main character is the smallest girl ever. Which is interesting because I don't like in books when they're constantly like, oh, he's so big, he's so tall, he's blah, 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 he's towering over her. I'm looking at you, Love Hypothesis and Allie Hazelwood. And I don't like when the author is like, oh, she's so tiny and dainty and small. But I don't remember this happening in Just for the Summer. Maybe I wasn't paying attention enough. The thing is it's so common in romances that I think I just kind of like ignore it at this point. I have a way of blocking it out and just being like, yep, okay, cool. We're not talking about that right now because I cannot hear it anymore. Honestly, if that's all I took from this book, I would be giving it a 1 star as well, but I just feel like there were so many good things about this book. I could honestly go on and on forever about the books that I love, and it's crazy to see just how much people can hate the books that I love, okay? But I'm sure it's the same way as the opposite direction, so I'm kind of thinking maybe I should read 5-star reviews on books that I hate or don't like, because that would be interesting to be on the other side of this. There are honestly a lot of other books that I could read about, so maybe I'll do this again in the future if it was fun. If this was fun and you want to see another booktube video, hit that subscribe button. If not, that's okay. You totally don't have to, and I will see you later. Bye!